Hey everyone, my name is Kristel and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Testlio. And today we have an awesome webinar coming up with our senior QA project managers Rudolf and Liina-Liisa, and they will be telling you all the things about how to create amazing bug reports. So I hope you will enjoy it as much as I will. Bye!
Hi, I'm Liina-Liisa. I've been in the testing industry for my whole professional life. I started as a data warehouse tester about 10 years ago, and now I've joined the mobile testing world with Testlio, and I've always been fascinated by the variety the industry brings.
Hi, I'm Rudolf. I'm in the software testing industry since 2008. I joined Testlio about a bit more than a year ago, and I'm a QA project manager over here. I'm actually really excited about today's topic because the bug advocacy in general is one area of software testing which I'm really fascinated about. So yeah, looking forward to going into the details as well. Yeah, but maybe let's start. Yep. So let's talk about basics. So what is a bug? I really like the definition of I think it was James Bach's definition of a bug. So it's anything about the product that threatens its value. So some say add a bit of additional context to it by saying that through the eyes of the stakeholder, but in general I think this sentence actually encapsulates what is a bug. And what we are today talking about is you as a tester, what should you do when you find bugs? What principles should you follow? We will just make really brief recap of it. We'll definitely post links for the info where you can get additional information from. But yeah, we'll have a small discussion of it. So I think let's start with the part that if you're a tester and you spotted something, you spotted some symptom, you think that it is a bug. So how can you decide if it is a bug? So this is something which especially maybe beginners struggle with. So here, what we can say is that you can use different oracles and heuristics. We will not fall into the discussion of exact oracles and heuristics over here because our time is limited. One maybe which we can hint to is a hiccups heuristic. We'll put the link also under the video, and you can read about it more. Probably for experienced testers, this is something definitely known. But when the oracles and heuristics come into play, one additional, if you have already decided that, okay, you have understood that this is probably a bug, so one really simple question to ask yourself, why should this issue be fixed? So put yourself into the shoes of different stakeholders, business, end users, just try to understand which value will it provide? What is the value the bug is threatening that this threat should be eliminated, basically. So, and this is something which a lot of testers, not a lot of testers, but still some of testers struggle to do it. The point is that for testers, the bugs are like babies. They are their own. So if you find something, you definitely want to report it, and it's really hard to kind of not to do it. So you're basically you made some effort, you found some issue, but now somebody's saying that you should not report it. But the noise you are creating by reporting low priority issues which will not be fixed, but which actually does not make any impact, is actually worse. You're making things actually worse. So So yeah, this is maybe the baseline question which all the testers should remember. And the project managers from business side, from QA side will definitely appreciate it. Maybe one really good heuristic, if we will go into already reporting the issues, so today we will go over the different parts of the bug, but we will actually talk a bit about the principles how to report the issues. So one really good heuristic, which a lot of testers are using, is the RIMGAN heuristic. So what it means, it actually means replicate, isolate, maximize, generalize, externalize, and use a neutral tone when reporting an issue. And if you're following this kind of framework, it's too much to say, but these principles, it really helps you to compile a really compelling report. So I would really like to just quickly go over those, each of those steps, just to give you the background for those who haven't heard of it. We'll also probably link some additional resources so you can read and catch up. Yeah, let's start with replicate. So basically, once you find the symptom, you decided that this is the issue which probably should be fixed. So the next step is to capture all the steps which you made in order to reproduce it. Just try to think back. Especially, it's good if you have actually recording of what you tested, so you can just play back the recording, just play it again, you can see what exact steps you did, and you can try to reproduce the issue. Simple as that. So really simple, really basic stuff. And here, where I actually draw the line between the testers, or beginner testers, and the more experienced testers, or let's say testers who do not care so much, and testers who want to deliver a really good quality to the stakeholders. So the next steps, isolate. So what it means is actually that you need to narrow down the issue. You need to find the smallest steps needed in order to reproduce it. So in order to save time, in order to give more context to the bug, there is no point of writing down 20 steps if only 3 or 4 are relevant. So you're wasting developers' time, you're misleading different stakeholders by not giving correct context to this issue. Of course, if you are in a hurry, you want to quickly report the issue, then that kind of bugs happen. But these, on the other hand, actually reduce the overall quality of your bug report if the issue is not correctly isolated. So yeah, there are different ways how to do it. You can just start by leaving out some steps, start from the beginning. Usually a lot of let's say input comes from the previous knowledge. You understand which steps could be relevant, which steps are not relevant. For instance, you found an issue after an upgrade of an app, so maybe you leave out the upgrade part, which is really time consuming, for instance, and try to do it without the upgrade and see if the issue reproduces. So you kind of narrow it down if it's upgrade dependent or not, and so on. So the next step, maximize. So this is something, again, really important, especially if you find maybe even low priority bug, which at least initially seems like a low priority bug. You should actually maximize the consequences of the issue, and not meaning that you should kind of make it look worse, but actually you should try to find out if the issue can get even worse. So for instance, if you are finding some I don't know, an exception in console logs in browser. So you are reporting it as a low issue. Yeah, there shouldn't be any kind of errors or exceptions in the console log, but in general, it's anyway a low priority issue, seemingly, because no end user will look into it. But think a few steps further. So maybe if after encountering this exception, maybe after doing some additional follow-up steps, something more major happens. So it's not just about the exception, it's actually about the whole different flow and about the whole different consequence. The same case goes for the, for instance, for doing a follow-up step, for a follow-up test with the older version. So in hiccups, there is a really good heuristic of each product should be consistent with its history. So meaning that if that behaved in a way in previous release, probably it should behave the same way in the new release. So unless there was some dedicated change. And where really testers can provide additional value and value to our stakeholders, to our clients, if they are actually checking the older version as well to understand, okay, was it actually reproducing in the old version as well, or it's something new? So if it has been there for years, then most probably maybe it's not even worth reporting. But on the other hand, if it has been introduced in the latest maintenance version, so it might be a really serious issue for the client. So that kind of follow-up steps, and if you search for follow-up testing, or you take BBST course of bug advocacy, so there's also a lot of talk about follow-up testing. So yeah, this is the way how you can maximize again the value. Next step, it's generalize. And so here, simple to remember, uncorner your corner cases. So a lot of testers are doing the boundary value testing, and often enough those values which are used, they are high, for instance. So, for instance, if you find some input field error with really huge number, I don't know, a few millions, whatever, just try to do it with lower values to make it more realistic. So this way you can give a better context to the client. Yeah, it's actually not a corner case. It's actually a value which is more, let's say, everyday. Last but not least, externalize. So this is something which is probably hard to do, especially if you don't have so much experience. But still, it's the part of you thinking of the consequences. What are the consequences for the company, for the company's image, for instance? Which damage it might create. So maybe if you're reporting, for instance, a bug about Android app draining battery, the app under test draining battery. So at first look, it might seem not as a big issue, because maybe majority of the users will even not notice it at first. But actually at some point Android starts to warn you that, okay, this app is draining battery. So it's something like, basically it's bad publicity. So if you're just trying out the app and you already see, okay, it's draining my phone's battery, why should I use it at all? So it's kind of something which first impression is left from your application, for instance. So yeah, think about of the consequences, or for instance, what kind of, if it's especially really publicly used product, if there can be any kind of chatters in the forums or in community related to that type of bugs. So you can actually bring it out in the bug report as well to make it more evident why this issue should be fixed. And it goes without saying that the bug report has to be reported properly in using neutral tone, and with correct formatting, with correct language usage, etc., etc. So this is the last part of the rim-gun heuristic, and it's really easy to remember. If you're doing it a few times, you will do it anyway already automatically. So this is what I really recommend testers to use, especially after you replicated the issue. Just think of those steps, those further steps. But yeah, I have now talked a lot. So Liisu, actually maybe you will talk about what is not the bug then. I have talked about what is a bug and how to encapture it. But what is not a bug? Can you give some examples maybe?
Perfect overview of how to determine if you have found a bug or you haven't. And I can just explain a few scenarios that I've seen that I wouldn't actually count as bugs, and some of the mistakes I've actually encountered. So first thing is really commonly I can see that bugs and visual thinking has been mixed up. Visual thinking actually is something that we can call improvement ideas or feature requests. So the tester actually reports something to be broken and that's a bug, but it actually isn't. So it's something that is supposed to be like that, or it even isn't supposed to work like that inside app. So a few examples, like just to like sum up it, is for example, in the sign-in, the user isn't asked to re-enter the password. So it might not be a bug even. It actually might be just an easier sign-up flow. So this is one thing that I've seen, and in so many cases I've also noticed that it's of course really good if the testers actually compare similar apps, so they can kind of like get an idea how the apps are supposed to work, how the other app is actually handling some situations, and see if maybe this is like a common sense scenario. But in a few cases they might go a bit overboard with it, so it might mean that I've seen bugs stating, for example, something isn't working like that, but the Facebook app does. So it actually isn't a bug, so we're not replicating the Facebook in that case. So this kind of like, there has to be a line in it. So not everything needs to be copied and work the same way as the other apps. But just like to get the overall idea, I think it's good to actually know how the other apps are working.
Yeah, and actually this is also one part of the hiccups heuristic as well. So the product should be consistent with comparable products, but you still have to keep in mind that somewhere has to come into the same fact of the uniqueness of the product under test. So you can't do everything as all the other products do. So yeah, really good point.
And another example what I've seen is that if you go into your exploratory tester mode, you look into different scenarios, you try to find bugs where there might not be, and some of the scenarios might get really crazy. So just to exaggerate, it might be that your granny has to call at the same time, you have to lose your Wi-Fi, some pop-up appears inside the app, and then something else happens, you switch from portrait to landscapes a couple of times, and
do the three-finger swipe at the same time as well.
And you tap really fast, and then something happens. You have actually just crashed your phone, and no app is going to support that anyway. So you kind of like need to keep it down. Of course, it's really good to get your exploratory mode on, but there is like a fine line. So if the user might not end up in this scenario, then it highly likely wouldn't be actually fixed as well. So this is something that you discussed already, and I think it has a good, like the rim-gun heuristic gives like a good overview if you should report it or you shouldn't. Or you're just doing something that isn't even logical. Like for example, if you're trying to edit file names in 3 different files at the same time, so it actually shouldn't be supported anyways. But you kind of like have to like step back and look into your bug and see if it actually makes sense, or why is it supposed to work like that anyways. So these are kind of like the most important ones. And also, as we discussed before, we came up with also that it's really important to know the project scope. So if we're testing something, and we do test regularly, even on a weekly basis, and for some clients we even do on a daily basis testing. So most often these clients are not interested in lower end bugs, and they might not be interested in UX improvements, low severity user interface issues if they don't impact any functionality, and also like network error handling, portrait, landscape, switching between them. So there just might be some scenarios that might not be in scope, and it's always good to kind of like try to understand. But of course, if it's, I've explained like the UI gets distorted in some cases, but there might be some exceptions. For example, when iPhone X came out, it was really like hot topic for all the clients to actually find out where the UI isn't working for iPhone X, because everyone wants to look good on iPhone X. So I guess there are like some edge cases inside it as well. But overall, we shouldn't report something that actually creates noise and probably won't be fixed. If it, of course, stops you from using the app anyways, it's definitely worth looking into and fixing it.
Yeah, and we definitely don't want to say that do not report lower-end issues. What we want to say is that you have to understand the scope of this project, because at the same time there are clients who are just who have not yet even launched the application, so they're really interested in the feedback of the UX feedback of the even low UI glitches, because they have to be better than other competitors, so they are willing to go this extra mile to fix even those minor issues, and it really makes an impact for them. So yeah, it really is depending on the exact scope and client requirements, basically.
Yeah, and even like for new clients, it definitely they're more open to feedback and everything. But if you even like test some app that you've tested for a longer time already, even the new features might be really in focus. So if you find like a really good improvement idea, you might report it, but it really needs to be explained well why it actually should be important to do it. Like how does it like really impact you, or what would it mean if it would have been working in a different way?
Yep.
So I guess these are like things to consider anyways.
Yep, it still has to provide value, basically. So yeah, okay. But maybe let's talk about a bit from our Testlio point of view about the where and how are the bug reports at all used. So one artifact what we provide with our testing is still the bug report, and it's actually, from the tester's point of view, this is one of the most visible deliverables what the tester does. So we are not going into the bug life cycle as such, because it's anyway different for different clients, for different customers, but maybe an input or insight to our testers, especially to the new testers who might not be so familiar with our platform as well. So what happens after the tester reports the issue? So first of all the issues are triaged by our test leads, who will validate them, make sure that they are also reproducible for them for additional reproduction. And based on these results, the issues are either approved or closed. And what happens after approval is that these issues are actually sent to our client bug trackers. So we do support various integrations with different platforms like Jira, VSTS, etc., basically you name it. And our clients can actually proceed already working with those bug reports which Testlio has reported as with their own. So actually there is no difference. And this is something which is probably hidden initially from the view of testers, because it happens actually on the background. But it provides really huge value for the customers. So they can still work on their platform using their tools. But maybe if you already talked about different customers, can you name some requirements of the bug reports and how different customers are using those bug reports, maybe? So
yeah, in Testlio and in our community, I think we have really awesome opportunity to work with different clients, testing different apps, and of course it brings up some requirements that the client might need, because they have their own development team. Some of them even outsource the development from another team that also brings some complication in it. But I think we have been really working well with all the different development methods, and we have been able to support them anyways, but it still might bring up different requirements that the clients might need. In some cases it just might be different environment details that they might need, or some proof of bugs. Of course,
yeah, different attachments, for instance, logs, etc., yeah.
And it mostly is just in order to be able to actually triage the bugs faster. This is something that we definitely want to help our clients with, so they wouldn't have to dig into the bugs and sort them out, and we wouldn't want it to take too much time from them, because it needs to work really fast. We do run really fast cycles, so we want the clients to actually be able to take this input that we give them and actually sort it out pretty fast. So in some cases they might need even reproduction on live versions or another platform, just to understand the depth of the bug, or just to understand actually how urgent the fix is going to be. And we're going to talk about a bit more on how to actually put titles and steps and etc. to your bugs, but that actually might be that client requirements state something differently that might be commonly used. So it's always really important to look into these details as well, because otherwise we just might lose quite a lot of valuable time to going back and forth between the client, us and the tester, and we all might be in different time zones. So we definitely want to avoid that. So I would suggest to actually put down really good bug reports with all the information that is needed, state how it actually is supposed to be, so we wouldn't actually waste any time on it. So everyone can already actually go into and start fixing the bugs.
Yep. And first of all, it saves hugely our test leads time who actually go over the bugs at the first place. So yeah, a really good point. But yeah, if you mentioned already that we will go over the parts of the bug report, so let's start with the title. So the essential. Probably as most of the testers who have worked in different teams already know that the title is the most important part of the bug, because a lot of stakeholders actually get the first impression or get the overall impression just by reading the title. So the essence of the title is that it should encapture the failure, and it actually should give or it should actually forward the severity of the issue. So when the stakeholder is reading it, he or she understands, okay, this is the failure and this how bad it is. That's about it. So really good style to use here is the failure when style. So you're not just writing that, for instance, login is not working, but actually you are stating that login with, I don't know, Facebook accounts are not working, or login with all accounts types are not working. So it gives this additional context that how urgent this is. So the stakeholder who is reading it reads that, I don't know, it's the login with X type of accounts is not working. Okay, there are only 3% of users using that kind of account. This is high priority probably, but we still can release this version and fix it as a hotfix, for instance. Just by reading the title, already the decision can be made. So yeah, and the rule of thumb here is keep the title as short as possible, but as long as needed. So don't write three long sentences. It still has to be clear and short. And one approach what we use usually across the different projects is to actually use a tag in the beginning of the title as well to indicate what feature the bug is basically representing. So what feature the bug belongs to. And regarding constraints, at the other hand, if the tester already did a pretty good isolation job and already narrowed it down that it's, for instance, Android 6 specific or Firefox specific bug, this is again the bit of information which could be put into the title in the brackets at the end of the title. So whoever reviews the list of all the issues which were found during this the cycle, so seeing that, okay, login is not working on Internet Explorer 11. Okay, we have only a few % of users on Internet Explorer 11, for instance, and they can already make a decision. So simple as that. Yeah, let's move forward, I think.
Yeah, so once you have actually put down the title, and I know that there are different approaches. Some of the testers prefer to actually put down the steps and all the other details, and after that actually name the issue itself. So it actually doesn't matter. We support other way, but in the end, it needs to be perfect, I would say.
Yep.
So first, like the bug templates that we do provide, to have different environment detail information. So it's really important when the developer starts triaging to know on what environment this bug actually was reported on. What's the device, the OS version, if there are any specific details on the network, or if there are anything important actually to understand where the bug happened and how it happened. And it also gives us a really good idea, as we do reproduce the tickets really often, and the other tester also reproduces them. We can already see, like, maybe on Android 6 it reproduces, on Android 8 it works like perfectly. So it already gives like really good insight. So it is really important to actually fill out all the fields, give all the necessary information, and like based on the projects we might even ask additional details like account information, location. It's not to visit you, but it's actually just to understand if it's location specific or it isn't. So these give like really good like overall overview of what the developer is actually looking at, or how the tester, or on what the tester actually tested this.
Yeah, and I think the most important part here is to be really specific.
Yeah.
So you will not write that you reproduce the issue on iOS 10. It actually doesn't give any value. You need to state down the exact version of the operating system. So be specific. This is the tip. So there is no worry if you will put a bit more information. The much worse case is if you have not reported enough information, so the test lead has to go and ask for improvements for your bug, and again the unnecessary time is spent. Yeah. Okay, moving forward then. Reproduction steps. So we talked about them briefly in the beginning, within the Rimgen, but just a few basic concepts. Always number the steps. Keep as less as information as possible, but as much as needed. Do not write lengthy sentences, because it gets really hard to follow. We see that on average the bugs do not contain more than 4, 5, 6 steps. So the cases with 10 steps or more are really, really, really rare, because it already means that it's most probably a corner case. So, but it might be still some really valid case, a really specific one. So in case you are encountering such a specific problem where you need to give lengthy steps as such, just give some updates in between, like with an arrow that, okay, you did now this, you should expect something like this. So whoever is reproducing, he or she would already know that okay, I'm at the right spot. So I did this step and I now had this outcome, basically. So what else? Maybe some basic mistakes which we see from time to time is to leave in really unnecessary steps, like basic ones that log into the app. If the feature is not usable, if you have not logged into the app, then it's self-explanatory that you have to log into the app. No point of stating that. The same goes for the last step of observe. So it's you did the steps. So it's anyway self-explanatory that you will observe what will happen. No need to state that, unless it's really specific case that you have to really closely observe the situation and pay attention to this and that and that. But this is then a separate step which describes it in detail. Just understand what style is used in this particular project by previously reported bugs as well, and try to do the same. It's much easier for the customers to see the bugs in similar style and read them at once. Expected and actual results then.
Yeah, so if you once have put down all the steps, you quite naturally end up with what you would expect to happen and what actually happens. So it is really important to put this down as well. And I would suggest to actually avoid using such assessment as wrong, incorrect, misbehaves, because if I say that this is wrong for me, it might not be something totally different for you. So you actually should explain what the action inside the app or what happens, what actually means the wrong part to you. So I would actually leave these words always out from the expected and actual results, and even from the titles, because it just doesn't make sense that these are estimations that can be different, and it doesn't give us too much information.
Yeah, and such generic statements like does not work or just fails or something like fails without any context, let's say it this way. So that kind of,
And even like the failures, for example, if I would say that the app gives wrong error in the failure, I wouldn't understand what actually happens. What is the wrong error? If it gives you something, then it might already be enough. But if you actually state that if you're trying to log in, it tells you that you don't have any files uploaded or something like really weird that doesn't actually make sense anymore anyways. So it kind of already needs to be put into the actual and expected results. And also one thing that I would suggest to keep your eye on would be not to just to copy the title to the actual result and then put the negative version of it to the expected result.
Yep.
It kind of like doesn't make sense. There might be more that you would need to say, what actually is the behavior that is supposed to happen and why you're actually thinking that this is supposed to happen. So you kind of like need to put down like the basis of your claims. If you're claiming that this is how it is supposed to work, then why do you think like that?
Yeah,
like
what is your article basically for that? So yeah.
Yeah. So
exactly.
and same as the steps and the title and overall, it just should be short and simple and really clear to understand.
Yeah. So some of the testers actually ask, okay, I have the actual result. Why should I put down the expected result? But this is the case that why you basically are stating why this issue should be fixed, why you think it's a bug in the first place from your point of view. So this is, and we always have the expected result in the bug template basically. So yeah, the simplest case is to claim that this is how the specification states.
And it already tells the developer or even us if we're reviewing the bugs that maybe the tester had just some misconception, and it's fine if it happens, but it can already like clear out some of the things, so it wouldn't create like a weird awkward situation where the developer is looking at the bug and says like, so what, like it's actually supposed to work like that. But if you're stating that you would expect it to work differently and why would we expect it, it actually might even make more sense to them.
Yep. And moving on, after you have actually stated the expected and actual results, the basically final thing to do, or one of the final things to do, is to add attachments. So most probably you have already captured the video, you have already captured the logs. So the video and the logs is always a must-have for our issues which we report. So client can actually go and see what actually happened with the app. So he or she does not need to just read the steps and try to understand what happened, but can open up the video and check it out. But actually there can be more attachments needed. It again depends on the project. So what is usually again required is that all the failures which are actually visibly distinguishable. So if you have the broken state of the app distinguishable from the screenshot, you should attach also the screenshot, because the client will then have a possibility to choose to either quickly check from the screenshot what happened, or to see the full video and check the full flow out from there. And in order for the video to make any sense, you have to make sure that actually the steps you provided in the issue itself actually match the steps in the video, because this creates usually a confusion that you as a reviewer see something in the video which is not written in steps, or vice versa. And the other problem which sometimes happens is if the tester has done some additional steps beforehand actually reaching to the main problem, so doing some prerequisite steps or something like this and making the video really a lengthy one. So if the video is already over 30 seconds, unless the situation requires it, of course there can be some timing issues, etc., etc. So most probably the video still needs some cutting of the content to make it more short and more to the point. Yeah, if you were talking about problems, maybe some to name a few, which might happen is, again, video maybe having too poor quality, or having background noise, or some fun occasions like the tester is testing accessibility features, voiceover, talkback, and actually not providing the sound to understand what is actually happening there. So that kind of occasions as well. But in general, I think overall quality for initially submitted bugs is really good, and testers do understand that logs are really needed, and actually quite a lot of them actually go an extra mile and provide additional stack traces already in the bug itself, or highlighting, okay, yeah, this is the stack trace, etc., etc. So yeah, but the most important thing, just keep an eye on the requirements. Different clients or different projects require the different attachments, maybe even network logs, etc., etc. So yeah, the most important thing is to just follow the rules. Yeah, and that's it. Yeah, of course, the bug report has the severity. Again, you have to choose it based on the requirements mentioned in the particular project, because it really can depend from project to project. For some clients, the low might not be low, but even not worth reporting. And on the other hand, for some, the low in a regular sense might mean even the medium severity or priority. Yep. Anything else we missed in the discussion?
I think this is like really good overview, but we have to say that this was kind of like a short overview, so it doesn't give the overall idea. So these are our experiences that we wanted to share, but this isn't everything.
Yeah, because there are lots of materials out there. There is a BBST course on bug advocacy, which I really recommend. Of course, all other BBST courses as well. There's just so much out there. We will definitely put the links under the video, so you can look for more. We could of course make a lot more webinars on related topics like specific heuristics or specific oracles. But I think just to give a really quick overview, this should be good.
And always remember, the bug report is something that you do provide to the client, so it should be neat.
Yeah, absolutely.